Hey everyone, it's Kenny again with Advanced Network Solutions. We are an IT service provider located outside of Gerald, Missouri. We service a 50-mile radius from here, offering IT solutions for businesses. You can reach us at www.anstechnology.net. From there, you can find all of our contact information, phone numbers, email addresses, social media, all of that fun stuff. And today we are going to be discussing the fight for Wi-Fi. Now, it's important to remember as we dive in here, these are for home-based solutions. These are not the type of solutions you would implement in a business environment, mostly because there's a big, very subtle to see difference between home-based routers and routers geared towards businesses. And one of the main examples being the way it prioritizes everything that happens on the network. With your home-based routers, you're looking at routers that are geared more towards prioritizing quality of service, access, functionality, and then lastly, the last thing usually on a home-based router's priority list is security, where with in a business environment, security is going to come first and then followed by quality of service and things like that. And also your home-based routers, those are usually more drop them in, plug and play, they're ready to go. We'll do a little bit of configuring, but with your business class routers, they're going to look a lot different, they're going to act a lot different, and most of it needs to be manually configured for the things to work on them. Now, I've seen businesses throw in routers meant for home use. You can do that, it'll work, but they're not necessarily PCI compliant. So that's also another thing for you to think about. If your business needs to be PCI compliant, you're processing credit cards and things like that, those routers you go buy at Best Buy and Walmart and things like that aren't necessarily going to give you a PCI compliant network. But anyways, let's dive right in here. Remember, this is for the home network. And the first thing we want to get out of your head about your home network is this idea that everything needs to connect to the Wi-Fi. That is just a bad way to set your home networks up. The reason being, no matter how good your wireless router is, all that bandwidth, no matter what you pay for your router, in the wireless environment, the bandwidth is all shared. So let's say you go out and you really want a really good wireless network, and you go out there and you spend $400 or $500 on one of these Nighthawk X6 AC 3200s with 33.2 gigabit per second wireless network. First of all, you're never really going to get that speed. Secondly, the further away you get from that wireless router, your speeds are going to slow down. The further away you get, your signal strength is going to slow down the further away you get. And not only that, like I said, all that bandwidth is shared. So the more devices you put on it, the more that bandwidth gets split up amongst those devices. What I want you to start thinking about is all the things on your network that get connected to the wireless that are stationary. TVs, Xboxes, PlayStations, desktop computers, these things that don't move. What we want to do is start wiring those connections and take some of that load off of your wireless bandwidth. Not only will doing this free up bandwidth for the rest of your devices, but you're going to see much better performance this way. The reason being that those cute little ports on the back of your router don't share bandwidth. Each one of those ports on the back of there have a 1 gigabit Ethernet connection that has a dedicated 1 gigabit speed per port. Those are separated, isolated collision domains. They don't share their bandwidth with the ports around them. And what that means is that's going to give you better performance on everything wired as opposed to those things being networked. Plug something in directly into your router, I promise you, you're going to see a performance boost in speeds, data transfers, all of that stuff. Eliminate those from the equation of wireless, and what you're left with was all your mobile devices, all the things that really need wireless internet, like tablets and your phones, your smart wearable devices, laptops, things like that. Things you're going to carry with you throughout the house. Maybe you're in the bedroom and you're moving to the couch, or you want to use it on the deck. Those are the things that need to be on the wireless network. All your smart TVs, your game consoles, those, first of all, will perform better with a wired connection anyways, and there's no reason to have them on the wireless. They don't move, they're not mobile. And now that once we've got just the devices that we do want mobile that we carry around with us, we can start separating those. If you've got a newer router, you're probably going to have dual band, tri-band, quad band type routers. And basically what this means is they work on two separate frequencies, one being the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, the other one being the 5 gigahertz frequency. Your 5 gigahertz frequency is a faster frequency. So what I would do is you could separate those devices when you set them up. Utilize both bands, because what this will allow you to do is balance network traffic across both of these bands, so not one band is getting hammered and all of those devices are on the 5 gigahertz band and they're all getting slowed down because everything's on there. Take your more bandwidth hungry devices like laptops and tablets and things like that and put those on the 5 gigahertz band, leaving your smartphones and wearables and whatever else, PDF readers, whatever you got that connects to the internet, put those on your 2.4 gigahertz band, which is a slower band. You put those devices on there that have smaller screen resolutions, that download, mobile versions of sites that don't use as much network traffic. Those are the ones you put on your smaller band, and balance the bandwidth across all of your wireless devices. Okay, so having said that, there is one thing you should probably keep in mind about the 5 gigahertz band. That is a faster band, but there's also this thing called attenuation. And what happens with these higher resonating frequencies is that they attenuate faster, which means the signal level drops off faster. So you may need to test this out a little bit, especially with your more bandwidth hungry devices. You may want to try it on the 5 gigahertz and the 2.4 gigahertz, kind of depending on which rooms you use them in the most. Even though that 5 gigahertz band is faster when you're close to the router, as you move away from the router, that bandwidth the signal is going to drop off faster. The speed is going to drop off faster on that 5 gigahertz band than it is on the 2.4 gigahertz band. The reason being, it requires more power to push those signals out of your router. And with both bands on most of these routers getting the same amount of power, that 2.4 gigahertz doesn't attenuate as fast. Another thing to think about is things that there's this saying, low frequencies can't jump, high frequencies can't swim. So basically what that means, it's used for diagnosing signal issues. It's just a saying out there, but basically what that means to you is things in your house like plumbing and things like that, it's going to affect that 5 gigahertz frequency more. So if your room that you're trying to use on this 5 gigahertz frequency is on the other side of the bathroom, for example, from your router, you might see that causing problems, maybe switching to the 2.4 gigahertz band, or maybe looking to a wired solution inside that room, repeaters, things like that can help boost signals. Another thing to think about with this difference in 2.4 and 5 gigahertz is that inside of these things, that first of all, the 2.4 gigahertz, there are a lot more devices inside your house that operate on that frequency. Not cell phones, but your cordless phones, microwave ovens. A lot of electrical devices operate on that 2.4 gigahertz frequencies. There's something you can do about this to eliminate interference, and that is channel selection. Inside of each of these frequencies, you can actually set most routers, or some routers, depending on what features yours comes with, to different channels. That may be something you want to look into to make sure, if you're getting interference, that you maybe try setting your router on each frequency to different channels to push them onto channels that aren't being used by, like, it's not being interfered with by microwave ovens and things like that. So anyways, now that you've got your devices split across these two frequencies, there is one more thing that you can actually do. Let's say you're competing with everyone else in the house for bandwidth, right? Maybe you've got an old router and you just don't want to spend the extra money to upgrade it. You've done all these other things, but you're still not getting the bandwidth that you want, and everyone else is hogging the bandwidth. You've got someone in the next room watching Netflix, the other person's on Snapchat, and you're just trying to catch up on the news online, and you can't load your web pages because they're hogging up all the data. Well, there's one thing you can do that I'm going to show you, because you've decided, you've taken it upon yourself that you're going to be, the router config admin of your house. I'm going to show you this magical thing called load balancing, where you can set device priorities. All right, so the first thing you want to do to set your load balancing here is to dig into your router. And if you don't know what your router's IP address is, no worries, you can hit the start plus R button on your keyboard and type in CMD, and that'll bring up your command prompt. And all you're going to type in here is ipconfig. If I could type ipconfig, and that's going to give you your IP addresses. And what you're looking for typically is this guy right here, default gateway. In your home environment, that's almost always going to be your router's IP address. So now that we're armed with that information, we're going to come into our web browsers here, and we're going to type in that IP address, and that's going to bring you, now your router screen might look different than mine. You're going to type in your password to your router, and I need a second to remember what I made mine. And you're going to have to play around at this point, because depending on the router versions, what router you have, what company you have, all of their web interfaces look a little different. They use different terminology to describe these things, but what you're looking for is something that kind of looks like this. It gives you a list of devices. It gives you this priority list. Now with this router, I'm showing you, this is kind of a cheaper router. It's only going to give me the ability to prioritize 3 things in here, but you can do a number of different things in here to prioritize different things. You can prioritize devices like a computer, your cell phone, whatever you're having troubles with, whatever you use the most. Let's say you use the laptop the most. I want my laptop to be number 1 on the network. I get priority. I get the bandwidth. Me. All right, I can take this and throw it in the number 1 spot. And as my device starts to get sluggish, what it's going to do is it's going to limit what it's sending out to the other devices and prioritize my laptop, give me the majority of the available bandwidth so that I don't get slowed down. Now, you can do this by device, you can do this by applications, you can do this by online games. I'll come in here and show you one of these. Now, you can come in here, oops. Let's say I'm looking in here and I'm looking for, I want Netflix, my Netflix app. And I don't see Netflix in here. Well, you can come to some of these, and all these are pre-configured port numbers. And if you understand a little bit about port forwarding and things like that, you can come in here, add a new application. You can figure out what range that Netflix uses for ports, put that in here, and you can come up here and name it Netflix. Netflix, if I could type and talk at the same time. Port range number, I'm just going to make something up, and I'm going to copy that. It's going to use, let's say it uses 4 ports or whatever. And then I would hit OK. And now that Netflix apps is configured, or that port for Netflix is configured. So what it's not actually doing here, it's not actually identifying the game on the network. It's not actually identifying the app on the network. What it's identifying here, if we can look at these, I want to edit it. What it's identifying here you can see on the games, it's the same thing, is port numbers. And you're going to set TCP, UDP. If you don't know, just leave it to both. It'll work. That has TCP and UDP has to do with verifying packets and things like that. Usually with net, just don't worry about that. If you don't know what it is, just leave it alone. But it's identifying port numbers. So anything that comes across your network on those ports to any device now, I get priority. And the second priority is that set of port numbers no matter the device. So I want me to have priority. Netflix can be second, and then whatever game someone's playing in the other room or whatever, that you can set that to last. Anything that's not on this list is going to be second to whatever is on this list. And like I said, I only have room for 3 devices on here. If I add another device, it doesn't give me room for more. Just kind of depends on your router, so that's something to think about. But in a nutshell, that is how load balancing works. I can hit OK on this, and it's going to prioritize that. Now anything that comes across on these 2 devices first, they get priority. After that is Netflix. After that comes everything else. So everything else gets slowed down on the network so that these 3 items have the bandwidth they need. Okay, so that's load balancing in a nutshell. So that's it. Those are my quick tips for getting the most out of your Wi-Fi. You know, take the devices you don't need to be on Wi-Fi, get them off the Wi-Fi, get wired connections to those TVs and Xboxes and stuff that sits in your house and stays in the same place. Those things that don't move, and then take the rest and distribute those across your dual bands. If you do that, a lot of times you'll find that the load balancing isn't actually necessary. I don't set load balancing in my house. Everything works just fine on our network, and we've got a cheaper $80 router versus some of these. Who cares if you go out and you've got like a Nighthawk and it's your internet connection that's slow? And so there's another thing to think about. If you find out that you've got all this stuff set up, and there's some tests you can run to figure out if your bottleneck is caused by your actual internal network or your ISP, your internet service provider, you may want to visit my friends at Charter Spectrum Communications. I mean, who cares if you've got a Nighthawk and you've got a 12 meg download speed? You've got 300 megabit per second or 3.2 gigabit per second, Wi-Fi network, but you only get 12 meg coming in from the internet. 100 megs per second, $30 a month. I recommend Charter Internet. I really like Charter. Not that I don't even know that I'm allowed to endorse them, but that's the ISP I recommend. That's the one I like the most. If you can get them where you live, I recommend looking into that. Again, Kenny with Advanced Network Solutions. You can reach us on the web at www.anstechnology.net. From there, you can find all of our information, like I said, phone numbers, emails. From there, we've linked our Facebook, our Twitter accounts, our YouTube channels. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos. Leave comments on things you'd like to see us cover. If you're a business in our area, like I said, from about Chesterfield-ish all the way out to just about the edge of Jeff City, that's the service area we cover, give us a call. You can find our phone numbers on our website, anstechnology.net. Go like our channel. Seriously, it helps us.